I said in the intro that we would be defending DPSs this week, which you know, knowing where we normally stand on this kind of stuff, anybody that's listening probably is thinking like, well, what changed or whatever. So it's not what you think.
Mm-hmm.
We're not defending the DPS in the traditional sense, but I do believe that uh, we have been placing the blame or the bulk of the blame in the wrong hands. So, like I said in the intro, we've been blaming the symptoms rather than the disease itself. And to me, and I think we talked about this before. I believe you may agree, but you can give me your opinion, of course. Um, I think that the blame really lies with these developers. I think that they are the main reason why the game is in such a bad state. I think they could fix things if they really wanted to, but instead they go more DPS heavy. And I said this to you earlier, kind of in passing, but I want to expound upon it now. I think that when it really comes down to it, Mr. Guang Guang and all of his friends are just DPS players that the people that we don't like, they're just those players who know how to make a game, who know how to code and all that stuff to be able to make a game. And because if you look at all the things they do, everybody's got to be a DPS. Even the characters that shouldn't be a DPS, they got to be a DPS. We can't go 2 seconds without, some kind of buff to a DPS while nerfing all the counters on healer and tank. They're pushing healers toward being more DPS centric. They're pushing a lot of the tanks toward more DPS abilities. I just think, all in all, the blame really lies with the developers and the DPSs and all the negativity that's coming with it, which we'll get into. I think that's just a symptom of the disease, which is the developers. So tell me what you think about that.
Hey, I'm on board. Contrary to popular belief, I think NetEase is fully at fault. I think the company is to blame because this is your product, right? This is the narrative that you push. Is that And the fact is that there are more DPS than tanks and healers on this game.
Yeah.
So I I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you just stated. And I said just rename the game to DPS Rivals, or like you said, just have a DPS only mode where everybody just have to scramble for health packs. And because why do you need you don't need a healer. You just want to do damage. You
Oh
don't need
yeah.
a tank that makes space. You just want to do damage. So I do believe, like you said, they are all of the same mind. They're all DPS like-minded folks that work at NetEase, and when they brainstormed and put their ideas together and came up with this game, they had DPS in mind, and
DPS on the brain.
it's DPS brain rot, bro. And it's painfully obvious. I don't even think it's debatable at this point. I think, and the community, I think would agree that the most favoritism is, catered towards the DPS. And like you said, we had that conversation about, having so many overpowered DPS, but then nerfing the counters for the DPSs. It's
Yep.
like we can't like so we're just gonna be DPS top heavy and nothing on the game. You're right. It's supposed to exceed that. Like what happened. It's it's unfortunate what happened to Devil Dinosaur, which was one of the best counters on tank in this entire game. They gutted him. Tank pool was considered S plus tier, not even traditional S tier, according to the Marvel Rivals community and streamers and the pro players. He was unanimously considered the best tank in the game, and not to mention one of the most fun. Because right, I think a lot of people complain about tanking and solo tanking because a lot of us are forced to insta lock a Magneto or a Doctor Strange because once again, as we just stated, the game is DPS centric, and there are a lot of really really strong hit scan and poke characters on this game. And
Oh
you
yeah.
know who counters that, people? Strange or shield tanks.
Yep.
But who wants to play a shield tank every single game because you've incentivized poke? That's all. It's poke slop, as they say.
Yeah. It is.
That's what the It's what the young kids are calling it these days. So
All right.
it's just a poke bowl, or you know what I'm saying? Like we're playing a game of poker. Like
I mean,
yeah, man. So, but right now, one end you got the overpowered DPS, and then we have the tanks and the healers that are supposed to counter it. But then the developers go behind our back like a thief in the night, and we wake up the next morning. Next thing we know, there's a hot fix, and they've nerfed what previously countered. You know, the DPS epidemic.
yeah, I mean, you talked about the poke. I mean, you went a little crazy with your idioms there, Unc. You got to you got to slow down a little bit, Gramps. but but yeah, I mean, we were talking about it off air. I mean, it's kind of like the people who want to camp in Battlefield or Call of Duty or Fortnite, stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like you're like people are. It's getting less and less. Where people are more up close and personal and really getting into the fight. It's more so about avoiding the fight, but still doing the same amount of damage and being rewarded for for not engaging as much as other people. And it just really sucks, man. I miss the old days where it was about the game being well rounded and you just kind of had to find your lane. But now it's they're really forcing you to. I mean, it's like they're forcing everybody to be a DPS, bro. Just being honest. I mean, as soon as you come into the game, people insta lock 2 or 3 DPSs, sometimes 4, and instantly the vibe is off. I mean, like you said, why should I always have to play shield tank, or why do I always have to play healer? Maybe I want to play DPS this game, but in order for me to play DPS this game, somebody's got to switch, and we know that's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen. So then it's like, well, you know what? Forget it. I'm just not even gonna heal for y'all. So then you end up with a whole DPS team, and it's just a bad spot. You see people complaining all the time. On the Reddit and YouTube videos and stuff like that, and it seems like the only people that they really listen to is the DPS players when they complain, but they don't really do anything for the tanks or for the healers. I mean, one of the biggest examples you just kind of mentioned it was the old Reptar himself. Devil Dinosaur. The pro players were complaining about him and tank pool because they were good counters for DPS. And then what did they do? Instead of balancing it out for both of them, they just nerfed the tank pool and the dinosaur. So now the DPSs, and of course they brought Cyclops out, and so now the DPSs get even stronger. And so instead of making a statement where what, we're not gonna just worry about our DPSs, that community, we want everybody to have fun. Nope, we're just gonna take away the counters to the DPS so that the DPS can have more fun.
Man, I think NetEase is making a big mistake. By I think they're catering to basically just one specific group of people, and that group of people being the pro player scene. I think, like you said, they're forcing us to run meta characters, and unfortunately, a lot of the meta characters are DPS, and even
Yeah,
more so, they're poke and hit scan. Anybody that can do like burst damage or range damage for a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like like a lot. It packs a punch.
right.
Um, they're basically forcing your hand to run those characters. And yeah, I don't want to be a meta slave. I don't think it's fun to always play meta. And who's to say what's meta, right? I think meta is. I think it's objective on one hand. I think it can be subjective on in another universe, because you can basically make a character meta. If you're really, really good and you have high enough skills, I think you can make any character meta, but there's a unanimous you know, I guess decision in the community of what's meta and what's not. And I think and those are the people that have the loudest voices in the community. And
Yep.
unfortunately, most of them are DPS players.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. We all, our tagline here is no meta, just mayhem. We definitely believe that, just because they say a character's meta doesn't mean they are, and just because they say they're not doesn't mean they're not. We believe that you can just get good enough with a character to make anybody a counter. You can make anybody a meta, and that's kind of where that came from for us. So I'm with you 100% there. I think I just think this season season 8 was really, considering the state of the game and where things are and the community and all that stuff. I really think that season 8 was just an opportunity for the developers really to make a statement. This could have been a double tank season. They really could have made the statement that we're not gonna just cater all the DPS. We don't have to have a DPS every season, but they didn't. They obviously didn't go that route. I think this was just really a chance. We can go one season without getting. We can go a lot of seasons without getting a new DPS. But I think it shows you what they really want in the game and how they want the game to go. Because like I said, you can't tell me that they don't hear the noise, they don't see the adversity and things like that. And they really had a chance, man. You were just telling me off air that Scott Summers and Captain America are really like around the same size, but for the game, they kind of beefed up Captain America a little bit and made him a tank. Why can't you do the same thing for Cyclops? I mean, you know this stuff better than me, but I know you were telling me before that Cyclops is like the leader of the X-Men. I mean, the leader of the X-Men sounds like a guy that's on the front lines. Sounds more like a tank to me. I mean, but maybe I'm wrong, but that sounds more like a tank to me. So I don't. This was a season that they really could have. This was a real flashpoint. They could have really made a real pivot here and make a real statement, and they chose to go the other way. So, and here we are.
Yeah, bro, they definitely chose violence this season. Um, they had the perfect opportunity and just squandered it. Absolutely fumbled it. Like you said, we've never had a double tank season, but we've had a double DPS season. I don't even. We may have not even had a dual healer season. We've had anything but right. We definitely had as many all the DPSs that we can handle, but
Yeah.
yeah, just a lack of love for our healers and tanks. But I think, like you said, that was a perfect opportunity. We could have won a double healer season. We could have won a double tank season. Anything other than DPS. But when given the free will, they made a choice, and yes, we're stuck with another broken DPS, which, like we were talking about, he has a similar build. Cyclops has a similar build to Captain America, especially in the movies. Chris Evans. I know everybody's watched it. The Avengers. That guy. He's not. Is he like super swole and buff and bulky? No, he doesn't look like a tank. You know, he doesn't look like a tank any more than Cyclops does, and they're both leaders.
Yeah.
Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, is a leader. He's on the front line. Makes sense. He's a tank. Cyclops is the leader of the X-Men, of Charles Xavier's squad. He easily fits the description, the role of a tank. Hell, even Magneto. We have Magneto on the game for another reference. Guess what? They made him a little bit buff. And guess what? He's the leader of the villains, and he's a tank. So
Yeah. It's true.
we have from Emma Frost, right? She was the leader of the original X-Men, like the origins
Oh, I didn't know that.
of yeah, she was like the first like iteration of the leader of the X-Men. And of course she's an Omega. We did some research yesterday. Come to find out, she's an Omega class mutant. She has like a secondary transformation or mutation, excuse me, that she can do by turning her skin in the diamond form. On top of being just ridiculously overpowered telepath. But they gave her extra hips, thighs, and ass, and just what I'm saying, just made her look like an OnlyFans model for the video game. Also, what I'm saying, for all the gooners out there, I'm sure they're enjoying that. But yeah, she's not like in the original comics, in the movie that she was in. I think she was an X-Men First Class, and she was an X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. She was not built like that, bro. Like she's nice and petite, and just she's not built like a tank, in other words. But for this game, right, they added some extra weight, in questionable places.
The Goon Squad.
you know, I mean, I know me and you didn't ask for that.
No.
We would have just been satisfied with just give us the base model, bro. Just give us lore accuracy. At the end of the day, that's what we're asking you.
I
That's
didn't
all
even
we're
know who
asking
Emma Frost was,
for
man.
you know what I'm saying? In a perfect world, we just want the game to be balanced,
Yeah,
whether that be lore, you know what I'm saying? Like wherever they want to take it, however they want to approach it. We just want we just want fair game balancing, and I think that's the message that we're promoting to the community. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that one.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I didn't even know who she was. I hadn't heard of her until the game. Squirrel Girl. I mean, it's a lot of them that I haven't. A lot of characters I didn't know about personally. I'm not into the comics and stuff, but I do agree. I wish they would focus more on making things lore accurate. Making a balanced game overall. But again, I mean, like we said, it's just these Spider-Man mains, people like that. If they could make a game, this would be what it is. So it's not really like it's not really much of a surprise that it's this way. I just think that for me, I just think it's really it was really just important for us to really shine a light on exactly where the blame should go and where everything, where like the origins of some of our problems with the game and in all in all. And I just think again, until the developers want to make that change and really want to make that statement, I think it's going to continue. I mean, you were just telling me you've seen different videos and people like really ranting about the state of the game. I really just think you're going to get more episodes like this. You're going to get more people ranting, more people complaining, until the developers really have enough and really say, okay, we're going to, go back to the foundation and we're really going to make a statement here to, make all of our players happy, rather than just worrying about just the DPS community. And until that happens, it's going to continue to get worse, brother.
Man, until next time, right? Next time, gadget, bro. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Hurry up and wait approach. But I mean, that's just part of our wish list. What we would like to see in the game as far as changes or adjustments. It's not asking a lot, NetEase. This is basically another love letter to the company. If you guys just so happen to run across or bump into our content, yeah, please just take it into consideration. You know, just take it with a grain of salt. But we speak on behalf of a lot of people in the community. Like we do the research as well. We do our homework, and we're just echoing the same sentiments that we're seeing from a lot of different communities, man. And yeah, I just I just hope they do better in the future because I tell you what, they're on the clock, bro. They're on the chopping block because GTA is around the corner,
Ooh,
and me and you
boy.
both know what that means.
Yeah, that's gonna be a real test, man. I think it's gonna shake up a lot of things, man. And I think any game that has issues in their communities and stuff, people are kind of looking for an alternative anyway. That's gonna really throw a wrench into a lot of plans here. So they definitely have some work to do. They better get on it, now because like you said, it's coming out in a few months. If everything goes according to plan, and I think at that point, man, it's gonna be a real big test for them, bro. I really do.
Yeah, Rockstar is a juggernaut. That's a juggernaut franchise, man. I don't think NetEase really wants that smoke. At the end of the day,
They're gonna do poke
they
damage.
might want to. Hey, they might want to get they might want to get ahead of the curve, man, or and not be behind the eight ball when GTA 6 rolls around, bro. Because yeah, that's gonna spell the end for a lot of competition. That's what you don't want to be in competition with that company, man, and you haven't worked out the kinks with your own product.
No, no, agreed, 100%. You don't want to go into it. You don't want to limp into it. Having these kind of problems. I definitely think it's a good time for them to really focus on, fixing that and really making sure that they have things, kind of sewed up a little bit more than they are, so they don't have to worry about that kind of, because I mean, there's going to be people who are going to be loyal to Marvel anyway, just because, and there's going to be people who won't be. There's not really much you can do about that, but I do think that you can put the odds a little bit more in your favor, by doing, just making certain adjustments, in order to, get a little bit more favorable odds going forward.
I think uh I think what you said is true. I think that they might wind up losing they might wind up losing their casual fan base.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The hardcore gamers, I can see them sticking around for the long run and just riding this thing out with with Marvel Rivals to the end. But I think for the casuals, that's just looking for just a fun experience, just mindless fun or just an alternative solution. Yeah, I think they may their attention may wander elsewhere, man, in the future if these issues and these problems don't get resolved pretty soon here.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. I guess we'll just have to, continue to follow things and see how it goes. Maybe we'll get that surprise announcement that we'll get a tank free or a DPS free season. I wouldn't hold my breath, but maybe it'll come, man. You never know.
Yeah, I think Rivals is they're in the same situation that Overwatch was, and I'm not an Overwatch player, but I do know close friends of mine that were a part of that community, and they said that the same thing that happened to Overwatch is the same experience right now with Rivals, and unironically enough, a lot of those players from Overwatch converted over to Marvel Rivals, which probably is contributing to the overall toxic environment that we're experiencing. But either way, um, it's not looking good, man, for NetEase, bro, at this rate.
Yeah, I agree, bro. We'll just have to see if they make the necessary corrections or if they'll just continue to let things devolve into, a worse and worse state and then, just continue to play their luck.
Yeah, man. Just hope they do the right thing like Spike Lee, brother.
I agree. Um, well, that'll wrap up another trip through the Multiverse Locker Room. This week we survived a Cyclops shadow buff. We endured more locker room meltdowns, and we committed the ultimate Marvel Rivals crime. We suggested that maybe, just maybe, the DPS players aren't responsible for every bad thing that's happened since the dawn of gaming. So whether you agree with us, completely disagree, or if you're currently typing a strongly worded comment while listening to this outro, we want to hear from you, of course. Are the developers steering the ship in the wrong direction? Are the DPS players getting blamed for problems they didn't create? Or are me and Kosa just completely out of our minds? Let us know. Be sure to follow the show, continue to support the show, leave us a review, and share your podcast with that one friend who's always saying it's not my fault after they just went 3-12. And remember, Mr. Guang Guang, you can nerf the heroes, you can buff the heroes, you can rewrite the patch notes, but if your foundation is cracked, no amount of balance changes is going to fix the building. He's Kosa. I'm GoatDawg. We'll catch you next week in the Multiverse Locker Room. Bye-bye, everybody.
Tune in next week. We out.
We out.